Hey, how you doing? This is Neil Battaglia from saxstation.com. If you haven't been there already, head over to saxstation.com, go to the side of the website, and enter your name and email address. You'll get updates, more lessons, you'll connect with some other saxophone players, and be able to ask me some questions. This lesson is about your fingers and their positioning on the saxophone, and how it affects sound, speed, fluidity, and a lot of other things. It's actually a lot more important than you might think. The relationship between your fingers and the tone isn't something that's talked about very often. More often you'll hear that the fingers are what's necessary to get the speed for what you want to play on saxophone. We usually think that our sound comes from our embouchure, from our throat, from our diaphragm, from the airstream that we put into the saxophone. The flow of the sound on saxophone is affected by your tongue and by your embouchure, but your embouchure and your tongue and everything else needs to line up with your fingers. And if they're even a little bit off, if there's a very small disturbance, you can hear that when you listen to yourself or you listen to another saxophone player. And if there's tension in your fingers and in your hands and your wrists, the rest of your body, that's going to come through in your sound too. If you're really clenching your hands and you're slamming down, then you're going to hear that in the sound of the saxophone. And it's going to come through as unevenness and just things that you don't necessarily want to play or things you don't necessarily want to hear in your sound. So you want to relax your body, you want to relax your shoulders, your back, and you really want to relax even your wrists and the palms of your hands when you're playing. It should just be the very slight movement of the fingers when you're playing. Some saxophone players have what I call flying finger syndrome. Their fingers are all over the place. They'll be like, they'll slam down the keys, and sometimes they'll play well, they'll have other things together, they'll have a strong embouchure, a strong sound, but I think if they had more control into the fingers, they'd be even stronger as saxophone players. You've probably seen some players who are on stage who move a lot, and it seems to get a lot of motion, but also you can think about other players like Charlie Parker, and when he moves his fingers, it's very, very slight. So you only see maybe this much movement in the very tips of the fingers. And he could play fantastically as one of the best saxophone players ever. So basically, to start getting your fingers under the control that you want to have, you just need to slow down, work on very small movements. You can start with just lifting one finger and take as much time as you need to get to where you want to be. Now the positioning of your hands should be in kind of a curved position. It should be like you're holding like a ball and it's relaxed, but there's that curve in them. So it should look kind of like this. And I'll keep all my fingers on the keys even when I'm not pressing them down, just so there's very little movement. There are very good reasons for having that curvature in your hands. If your fingers are flat, to move up and down takes quite a bit of movement. Whereas if they're curved, then you can just move the tip just a little tiny bit. To practice this, just break it down. If you notice there's a irregularity in your playing, kind of concentrate on your fingers, and a lot of times if you get your fingers right, the problem will go away because that's where the problem originates from. So if, for an example, you might have a part in a piece of music where you're going from your B to your C, and that movement can cause a lot of problems. So that's something you might just spend a few minutes or even 10 minutes just working out and getting it smooth so you don't hear that little piece of schmutz in between.
All